Talking dogs here at the Voice of College Football. Georgia at 3-0 and laying down the defense like few other teams in the country. We got Savannah Lee Richardson on the line from Dawn of the Dog to break down Georgia. Vanderbilt's up next in Nashville. Hey, Savannah.
How's it going, Mark?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Being 3-0 is a nice feeling. So.
Yeah, especially since a lot of people didn't think it was going to be 3-0 because of that first Clemson game. But my goodness, I know Clemson's having their issues, and they're having issues along the offensive line, but still that offensive line is full of 4 and 5 stars. And I don't know that I've recently seen a defensive front and front seven just live in the opponent's backfield against a good team like Georgia did in that game.
Yeah, I honestly thought that Clemson's defensive front would have been the better unit, even coming from a Georgia fan, Georgia alumni. They're just on paper, they're just extremely talented, and then you have the scrappiest bunch that is Georgia, and no one expected Jordan Davis to come in there and just absolutely dominate the way that he did, because he struggled a little bit last year, but evidently he's done a lot of work this offseason, and it's really impressive to see because we've been wanting that for so long, to be able to maul over offensive lines and stuff like that. And to finally see Georgia do it, it's just like a breath of fresh air.
Then they take on a team in UAB that, of course, they're going to be a huge favorite and expected to win. But to win 56-0, nobody else is doing that against a UAB team that's been a contender in Conference USA and won the conference, I think, 3 consecutive years. So they've just been dominant. And then, of course, knock a quarterback out of the game this Saturday night against South Carolina. They had to go to Luke Doty, couldn't run the ball at about 2.5 yards per carry. Just the defense continues to be devastating. So who else on that defensive side is really standing out?
I can give you a few names, to be honest. Channing Tindall is one. He just came off a 7-tackle game against South Carolina. He was the second leading tackler behind Nolan Smith, who is the other guy that I was going to mention. He's the one that had a strip sack in the middle of the game where Quay Walker picked it up, and Georgia was able to get the ball back and score again. Those two guys have stepped up in tremendous ways. And then there's Adam Anderson, who he led the team last week with 5 quarterback hurries. And to me, that's just something that we have been waiting as Georgia fans to see him do. We've seen him kind of go up and down the last 3 seasons, and now all of a sudden he's kind of exploded onto the scene. But it's funny because Georgia's secondary is probably the biggest question still, but moving from the linebackers into the defensive line, it's just any name that you call on knows that they can make a play, and they're gaining confidence every week. And so that's the exciting part. Georgia has 60 quarterback hurries in 3 games. And I know that's not something that college football stats most people do, but that's something that Kirby keeps up with. And I just think that's absolutely tremendous to see that kind of number through 3 games. So just think if they were actually able to not get held by South Carolina's offensive line, how many sacks it would have been. Probably 7, if not 8.
Lewis Steen has been a guy that I've liked ever since I saw him start playing. He lowers a boom on wide receivers in the secondary, not afraid to mix it up in the running game. He's an exceptional player. So, as you mentioned, the secondary has been the question mark, not because of talent, but because of losses to the NFL and because of losses through the transfer portal with Tyreek Stevenson going to Miami. So how has the secondary played? Obviously not giving up a whole lot of points to anybody. So that answers one question, and maybe not getting the kind of test that they will get a little bit later in the season. But what are your thoughts about the secondary play?
I'm actually really excited about the secondary. I just think that once they get a few more games underneath their belt, they're going to come together as a whole unit and get better each game. That's all it's going to take for them is they've had playing time, but outside of Keely Ringo, who had to miss last season due to an injury, but those guys have playing time. They have experience, just not starting experience. And so we've seen them kind of grow each and every week. 2 pick-6 in week 1 and then week 2. That was exciting to see, especially coming from a defense that struggled to force turnovers last year. And Lewis Steen, honestly, he reminds me of a Greg Blue kind of guy who's just not afraid to knock somebody's head off. And even though that they have to be careful with that this season, he's definitely somebody that really excites me. And he's one of the biggest leaders in that secondary. They've given up, I think, 146.3 yards a game and only 1 touchdown through the air. And so that's pretty impressive going through 3 games, and then especially against an SEC opponent where that's really all they could do was pass. And so a lot of the passes that they were completed against Saturday in Athens was, 50-50 balls where the secondary or the cornerback had his hands on it. The wide receiver brought it down. And those kinds of things are going to improve the further the season goes along, because they're going to get a lot more confident in what they're doing, and they're going to fix those mistakes of either jumping too early or being a little too aggressive here or there. But I expect that group to be really aggressive as they can, because that's what you see nowadays with Alabama, with even Clemson and other teams like that. They want those aggressive cornerbacks and safeties to make plays, because offenses are so explosive through the air right now.
Couple things to note from the South Carolina game. Kevin Harris is one of the best backs in the league. He only averaged 1.9 yards per carry against Georgia. And again, if you hold a passing attack under 50% completion percentage, you're doing your job. Definitely 14 of 29 for Luke Doty and Zeb Noland against the Dogs. We got Savannah Lee Richardson on the line from Dawn of the Dog. Catch her work right there. And talking up Georgia football, going to Nashville to take on Vandy this week. All right. I don't know if you saw the game broadcast, because you were probably at the game, I'm guessing.
Actually, no, I'm at home.
Okay, you're at home watching the game broadcast. So I didn't see a whole lot of the game, because I was expecting what I got. So I was checking in on more competitive games. But at the same time, I did turn on the replay yesterday and was taking some of it in. And I was interested to hear Todd Blackledge during the broadcast seemed to feel as though he needed to explain why JT Daniels was the starting quarterback. Stetson Bennett, of course, had a big day against UAB, and that's great. And he's a really good program player, and he can fill in when needed. But there's no comparison, I don't think, between the two guys. So nobody's really talking about this. Are they seriously?
I think they're just trying to make people more interested in the situation than it actually is. There's no quarterback controversy. There's no quarterback competition. Stetson knows his role is the backup guy that has to come in when he needs to be in the game. And JT knows that that's his offense. And not that you saw a ton of the game, but when JT was in the ball game, it was just a different kind of an offense. And even though we saw that against UAB with Stetson, this is JT's offense. That offensive line blocked better for him. Those guys got open downfield. It's just great to see explosive plays coming from Georgia. And no, JT Daniels is the starting quarterback. And unless he gets hurt, which knock on wood he doesn't, he is going to be Georgia's guy. And it's 2 weeks in a row, because the broadcasters for the UAB game was also trying to make it out like there was a quarterback controversy. But no, he had a little oblique injury that was a little sore from where he hurt it in fall camp. And I don't know why they want to do that, because all it does is drive Georgia fans crazy. And I think it just causes rumors that aren't even there. So no quarterback issues, just JT Daniels getting healthy, and 6-0 as a starter. So I don't think there is any questions who needs to play.